I never wanted anything big for my 30th birthday. No flashy parties. No over-the-top surprises. Just something quiet. Warm. I booked a cozy hall downtown, decorated it with lilac balloons and fairy lights, and invited only the people who were supposed to care. Family. Friends. My husband. I wore a soft lavender dress. The same one Daniel once said made my eyes look like a calm storm. I remember standing in front of the mirror that morning, smoothing it over my hips, telling myself, today will be different. He'll see me again. Daniel had been cold for months. Hot when others were around, cold the minute we got home. But I kept making excuses. Maybe he's stressed. Maybe it's work. Maybe I just need to try harder. Smile more. Stay quiet. Be easy. So I smiled. I stayed easy. The party started off just fine. People laughed, clinked glasses, complimented the food. I kept flitting between tables, checking the playlist, making sure the cake arrived on time. I wanted everything to be perfect, because if the night was perfect, maybe Daniel would stop looking at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. When the cake finally rolled out, tall, white frosting with little lavender roses, people clapped. I stood next to Daniel. Cameras were out. Everyone gathered close. And just as I was about to make a little speech, something light, something silly about how Daniel once burned toast and nearly set off the alarm, he slapped me. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough to stop time. The room went dead silent. No music. No laughter. Just a sharp sting on my cheek and the sound of my own heart pounding. I blinked. At first, I thought, did that just happen? Maybe I misread it. Maybe it was a joke. I turned to him, my mouth half open. But he just smirked, leaned close and muttered, loud enough for everyone near us to hear. Watch your mouth, woman. My cheek burned. Not just from the hit, but from the heat of every eye on me. And yet no one moved. Not my mom. She looked away, like she'd dropped something on the floor. Not my in-laws. They sipped their drinks like nothing happened. Not even my so-called friends. One of them chuckled nervously and said, "Yikes, that was awkward." As if it were a bad joke gone too far. I wanted to disappear. My throat was tight, but no tears came. I just stood there, frozen, embarrassed, exposed. Like someone had stripped me naked in front of everyone I trusted. Daniel just picked up a fork and started eating cake. Then, just as I was about to walk out, the doors burst open. 3 uniformed soldiers walked in. And, behind them, my father, Major General Raymond Carter. Retired. Decorated. Feared. The man who hadn't spoken to me in almost 7 years. The man who missed my wedding, never returned my calls, and left me with a lifetime of silence and confusion. But now, here he was, in full dress blues, medals on his chest, chin high, eyes locked on me. The room shifted. You could feel it. My father didn't say a word at first. He just stared. At me. At my red cheek. At Daniel, who was still holding his fork mid-bite, confused. Then in a voice that cut through every lie, every excuse, every fake smile in that room, he said, "Is this how you treat a soldier's daughter?" Gasps. I didn't move. Couldn't. But something cracked inside me. A crack so loud, it echoed through my bones louder than the slap ever did. For the first time that night, I felt seen. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone anymore. They say when someone saves you, you're supposed to feel grateful. But as I sat in the back seat of my father's black SUV, I didn't feel grateful. I felt numb. The party had ended in chaos. My dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't touch Daniel. He just gave a cold stare that froze the entire room. Then he nodded to the soldiers, turned on his heel, and told me to follow. I did. Not because I trusted him, but because I didn't know where else to go. Now, sitting next to him as the driver cut through the night, I stared out the window. We hadn't spoken a word since leaving. The silence between us felt like a second skin, familiar, heavy, choking. Finally, he spoke. I should have come sooner. I didn't respond. He tried again. I saw it. The look in your eyes. That wasn't the first time. Still, I said nothing. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for showing up a decade too late? He sighed. Your mother didn't want me involved. That made me snap. I turned to him, voice sharp. Since when do you let anyone tell you what to do? He looked at me then. Not like a soldier. Not like a father. Just a man carrying too much guilt. I thought keeping my distance would keep the peace. I thought if I wasn't in your life, maybe you'd find something better. Be someone better. I laughed bitterly. Well, you got what you wanted. I became quiet. Just like Mom taught me. Quiet girls get to stay. Quiet girls get to survive. He closed his eyes. No. Quiet girls get hurt. Silence fell again. But this time it wasn't empty. It was full of all the things we never said growing up. I remembered being 6 and watching him pack for deployment. I begged him not to go. He kissed my forehead and promised, be strong like your mother. But Mom wasn't strong. She was sharp, cold. She didn't raise me, she shaped me into something small, palatable, easy to ignore. I remembered being 12 and winning a writing contest. I showed him the ribbon on his weekend home. He said, "That's nice, kiddo," and went back to watching the news. And when I told him I was getting married, he didn't ask if Daniel was kind. He didn't ask anything. Just said, "Make it last." Carter women don't quit. So, I didn't quit. Not when Daniel called me stupid. Not when he emptied our savings by mistake. Not even when he pushed me once, just once, but hard enough that I had to stay home from work the next day with a bruised rib and a fake smile. I tried to be the woman everyone expected. I whispered. My father didn't respond right away. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear. You don't have to be her anymore. The car pulled up to a quiet guest house, his apparently. He opened the door and stepped out, then looked back at me. You can stay here. As long as you need. No one gets to touch you again without going through me. And for the first time in years, I believed him. Not because he was a soldier, but because for once he sounded like a dad. The next morning, I woke up in a stranger's bed. It took me a moment to remember where I was. The guest house, the stiff linen sheets, the faint scent of tobacco and leather still clinging to the air. I sat up slowly. My cheek was tender from the slap, a dull throb reminding me it hadn't been a dream. Neither had the look on my father's face. The soldiers. The silence. The ride. I moved to the small kitchenette and found a cup of coffee waiting, still warm. He'd been there. I turned toward the back patio and saw him outside, my father. Sitting alone, arms crossed, staring at nothing. I opened the door, stepping into the morning chill. He didn't turn around. I made the coffee, he said. Didn't remember if you still liked it black. I do. We sat in silence again, but it wasn't as sharp this time. Just cautious. I know I don't deserve to ask, he said, but I need to know. Has he hit you before? I looked at my hands. They were shaking. Once. Years ago. Then again last year. It was always small things. A shove. A grab. A comment in front of people that I'd have to laugh off. My voice cracked. I convinced myself it was love. Or my fault. Or temporary. He nodded slowly, jaw tight. I knew something was off when I saw him in your wedding photos. Eyes like a man who needed to win, not love. Then why didn't you stop it? I snapped. He finally turned to me. Because I thought if I interfered, I'd push you away more. Your mother said I was too harsh, that you needed soft hands. I laughed bitterly. Soft hands didn't protect me. They told me to keep secrets, to smile when I bled. He looked like he'd been punched. I didn't stop. You weren't there when she shamed me for gaining weight after my miscarriage. You weren't there when she told me to please Daniel more, or he'd find someone who could. You weren't there when I called you, and you didn't pick up. Again. And again. And again. He closed his eyes. I failed you, he whispered. I swallowed hard. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break every coffee mug in that kitchen. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, so why now? Why show up at my party like some movie scene with soldiers and all? He looked up. Because 3 weeks ago, I got a call from someone I trust. She works in social services. She said she'd seen a woman matching your description come in once. No file, no report, just bruises. And silence. She said the woman walked out before they could help her. I felt my throat tighten.
I remembered that day.
I had gone in, heart pounding, ready to report Daniel. But when they handed me the clipboard and asked for my name, I turned around and left. I wasn't ready. I figured it had to be you, he said. I started watching quietly, made some calls, saw the way he treated you in public. You flinched when he raised his voice. That was enough. Tears burned the corners of my eyes. Not from sadness. From something else. Something sharp and rising.
Rage.
Not just at Daniel, but at the whole damn system. The family. The silence. The rules. He put a hand on the table. Not touching me, just near. I know I can't fix the past, but I can stand with you now. And if you're ready, we take him down. I looked at him then. At the man I once idolized. Then feared. Then resented. Now, he was just human. And maybe humans can change. I nodded. Not because I was ready, but because I was done being afraid. The next few days felt like peeling back layers of my own life, layers I had carefully painted over with smiles and excuses. I moved into the guest house for good. Daniel texted once. Come home. You embarrassed me. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Just you embarrassed me. I didn't respond. My father didn't push me to talk. But he didn't sit still either. He made calls. Brought in someone he trusted, a woman named Tessa. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, a military legal advisor. She laid out folders on the table like we were planning a mission. Do you have any access to his financials? She asked. I did. Or at least I used to. Daniel had always insisted we combine everything. One joint account. One shared credit card. Transparency, he called it. Turns out that transparency was just his way of hiding things in plain sight. We started digging. Tessa brought in a forensic accountant, a quiet man named Leo with kind eyes and a laptop that never seemed to close. Together they found it. Daniel had been opening credit lines under my name, transferring funds from our joint account to his personal one, even using my social to apply for a business loan. He's good, Leo said, tapping through the records. But not careful. My stomach twisted. Every click on that screen was a betrayal I hadn't even known I was living through. He wasn't just emotionally abusive. He was stealing from me. And my so-called in-laws? They were co-signers on one of the fake loans. They knew. They'd always known. I was just the dumb, quiet girl who paid for their son's dreams while he tore mine apart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break everything in that room. Instead, I stood up and whispered, I want him exposed. My father nodded slowly. We don't just confront. We crush with proof. So we built the file. Tessa walked me through the legal side, financial fraud, identity misuse, emotional abuse patterns. We documented everything, texts, emails, bank statements, even voice recordings I had saved without realizing how valuable they were. And the more I learned, the more a fire started burning in my chest. For so long, I thought my silence made me noble, that staying small made me safe. But now I saw the truth. Silence wasn't noble. It was dangerous. Staying small didn't protect me. It made me invisible. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't too sensitive. I was surviving. And now I was done surviving. I was ready to fight. I used to think revenge was loud, screaming in public, slamming doors, telling the world everything in one explosive moment. But real revenge? The kind that hurts? It's quiet,
Planned.
surgical. And this time, I wasn't doing it alone. My father called it Operation Honor Reclaimed. Half joking, half dead serious. He pulled strings I didn't even know he still had. Within 2 days, he had secured an invitation for both of us to attend a private gala hosted by a veterans charity, the same one Daniel had recently donated to, hoping to build his reputation as a patriotic entrepreneur. They were planning to honor him at the event. My stomach flipped when I heard that. He didn't support veterans. He barely respected me. But he knew my last name, Carter, meant something. He used it just like he used me. So we decided to return the favor. Tessa prepped a full report, neatly organized, time-stamped, and bulletproof. Every lie, every dollar moved, every account he forged. It was all in there, backed up digitally and printed in a leather folder with gold tabs. Meanwhile, I prepared my part. I want to speak at the gala, I told them. My father raised an eyebrow. Publicly.
Yes.
On stage. In front of him. I thought he might object.
He didn't.
He just said, "Then we rehearse until your voice never shakes." And we did. Every night for a week, he made me stand in the middle of the guest house and deliver my speech. Again. And again. Slower. Hold your shoulders higher. Say that line like you mean it. I wasn't his daughter during those rehearsals. I was a soldier in training. And weirdly, I liked it. Because he wasn't controlling me, he was arming me. He taught me how to stand with presence. How to keep my tone calm even when I wanted to scream. How to control a room without raising my voice. By the third night, he saluted me when I finished. "You're ready." The night of the gala arrived fast. I wore a sleek black jumpsuit, tailored, strong, no frills. My hair pulled back. No jewelry. No distractions. Just me and the words I had burned into my bones. Daniel was already there when we arrived, schmoozing with some board members, laughing like he hadn't slapped his wife in front of a crowd 2 weeks ago. He didn't see me at first, but when he did, his smile twitched. Just for a second. Then he came over, mask still on. "Well, look who crawled out of hiding." I smiled back. "Wouldn't miss your big night." He looked at my father, but didn't say anything. My dad's presence alone seemed to sap the air out of Daniel's lungs. As the speeches began, I waited in the wings.
A host stepped up to the mic.
"Tonight, we honor not only those who serve, but those who stand with them. In our audience is a special guest, Mr. Daniel Myers, who has generously donated in support of military families." Polite applause. Daniel stood up, nodded, acting humble. "And, to speak on behalf of one such family, please welcome Jade Carter." I stepped up.
Lights.
Silence. I took a slow breath. Held the microphone. "My name is Jade Carter. I am the daughter of a soldier. And until recently, I was the wife of a man who used that connection to build his image while tearing down mine behind closed doors." You could hear the air shift. I was slapped at my own birthday party. In public. In front of family. Friends. And no one moved. Daniel's face changed. I kept going. I stayed quiet for years. But silence only protects abusers. So tonight, I will not be silent. I held up the leather folder. Opened it. This man, who you're honoring, has stolen over $60,000 using my name. He forged documents, took loans, lied to your donors, and treated me like property. The screen behind me flicked on. Leo had synced it with a slideshow, bank records, forged signatures, screenshots.
People gasped.
Someone stood. Another whispered, "Is this real?" I turned to Daniel. He looked pale. Security moved toward him. He tried to speak, but my voice cut through first. "This ends now." The soldiers who once stood behind my father walked toward him, not violently, just firmly. Daniel didn't fight. He looked at me one last time, and in his eyes I saw it. He didn't fear the soldiers. He feared me, because I wasn't the quiet wife anymore. I was the daughter of a soldier, and I had reclaimed my honor.
Applause didn't follow my speech.
Not right away. There was only silence.
Tense.
Breathless. Heavy. Some people stared at me like I had just set the room on fire. Others stared at Daniel like they were trying to see through the polished shell they had clapped for 5 minutes earlier. And Daniel? He froze. His mouth opened like he might say something, but no words came. He looked at the screen behind me, where his fake bank statements flashed one by one. Then at the folder in my hands. Then at the 3 soldiers quietly flanking the exits. He had nowhere to run. The host cleared his throat, clearly panicked, and stepped up to the microphone, trying to salvage the night. Thank you, Miss Carter. We'll, pause briefly and... But before he could finish, my father stood. He didn't shout. He didn't even touch the mic. He just said, in that firm, commanding voice that once led troops through enemy territory, "Let her finish." The host stepped back like a child who'd been caught doing something wrong. And so I finished. I looked directly into the crowd, into the camera that was live streaming this event across the charity's digital platform. I know some of you are wondering why I brought this here. Why I ruined this nice evening. But I didn't ruin anything.
He did.
With every lie, every fake loan, every time he used my name to build himself higher, he ruined it. I'm just showing you the wreckage. I turned toward Daniel.
He still hadn't moved.
His fists were clenched at his sides. Daniel, I said, I loved you. Even when you belittled me. Even when you mocked me in front of your friends. Even when you spent my money, lied to my face, and slapped me at my own birthday party. Gasps rippled across the room. You used my silence like it was permission. But it never was. He took a step forward like he might try to defend himself. But one of the soldiers gently held out a hand.
He froze again.
I turned back to the audience. To anyone here who's ever felt invisible, who's been told to not make a scene, who's been made to feel small so someone else could feel big, let this be your moment too. I held up the last document from the folder, a signed confession Daniel had emailed a year ago, thinking he was being clever. The final nail. Then I stepped back. That's when the applause started. Not the polite kind. The real kind. The kind that starts slow, one person at a time, then builds like a wave you can't stop. People stood. A few even wiped tears. I didn't smile.
I didn't bow.
I just stood tall. Because for the first time in years, I didn't have to shrink myself to survive. As the event wrapped, security escorted Daniel out. Quietly, professionally, but clearly. One man from the board walked over to my father. Why didn't you tell us what was happening? My dad answered without hesitation. She told you now. That's all that matters. We left the gala together, the 4 of us, me, my father, Tessa, and Leo. Outside, the air was cool, crisp, alive. My father placed a hand gently on my shoulder. You did that. I looked up at the stars. Feels like it. He gave a rare, small smile. You didn't need me this time. I needed to know you'd show up if I fell. You didn't fall, he said. You flew. We stood there a while longer. I looked down at my hands. The same hands that had once fumbled to cook dinner in a cold, silent kitchen while Daniel scrolled on his phone. The same hands that shook when I first walked into the guest house. Now they didn't shake. Now they felt steady.
Strong. Mine.
Before we left, I glanced back at the building behind us. Inside, the guests were probably still murmuring. Whispers. Reactions. Questions. Let them talk. Let them know. Because tonight wasn't just about Daniel. It was about me. Finally being seen. And finally, owning my voice. The fallout was fast and messy. Within 24 hours of the gala, The video went viral. Not just among the guests who'd witnessed it live, but across military forums, financial watchdog groups, and even social media platforms where the words, "She's the daughter of a soldier," started trending. Daniel was arrested 2 days later.
Fraud.
Identity theft. Financial abuse. The charges stacked up faster than he could lawyer up. But that wasn't what stayed with me. What stayed was the silence. Not the painful kind. Not the kind that had once filled my home like smoke. This was different. This was peace. I moved into my own place. Nothing fancy. Just mine. Small apartment. Clean walls. A plan I hadn't managed to kill yet. My mom never called. Not once. Not after the gala. Not after Daniel was exposed. Not even when my name hit the news. She stayed loyal to her silence. That was her choice. My brother sent a text. Heard about everything. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at it for a while, then turned my phone off. That chapter was closed. But not all of them were. My father came by one afternoon carrying a heavy box. Inside, my childhood things. Photos, ribbons, journals I thought were long gone. I kept these, he said. Didn't know if I had the right to give them back. I took the box, opened it, and found a picture of me at 10 years old, holding a plastic sword, saluting the camera with the fiercest little grin. I smiled. You always had it in you, he said softly. You just needed a reason to unleash it. He was right. I did. And now that it was out, I wasn't putting it back. I started volunteering at a local women's shelter, then speaking, then building something of my own. A nonprofit. The quiet ones no more. Support. Resources. Legal aid. Public speaking workshops. Everything I once wished I'd had. Women came. They listened. Then they stood. And I stood with them. My father showed up to the first workshop. Sat quietly in the back. No uniform. No medals. Just a proud dad with tired eyes. We didn't need to say anything that day, because everything that needed to be said had already been spoken. Through me. It's funny how something as small as a dress can carry so much weight. Today, I pulled that lavender dress out of the back of my closet. The same one I wore on my 30th birthday. The one I got slapped in. The one I cried in. But today, I wasn't putting it on to be pretty. I was putting it on to remember who I used to be and how far I'd come. The mirror didn't lie. The woman staring back wasn't the same. My cheek had healed, but something deeper had formed beneath the surface. A strength that didn't need to scream to be heard. Lavender, soft, feminine, gentle. Steel, cold, unbending, unbreakable. I was both now. I had just gotten off a call from the Global Women's Leadership Summit. They wanted me to be the keynote speaker next month. The topic? Transforming silence into power. I said yes, of course. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the universe has a wicked sense of timing. A year ago, I could barely ask a waiter for extra napkins without panicking. Now I was preparing to speak to a room full of leaders, survivors, fighters. I slipped on the dress and stood barefoot in the middle of my quiet apartment. No makeup, no crowd. Just me and my reflection. I reached for the necklace my father gave me last month, his service tag, polished and worn, strung beside a tiny silver sword pendant. Strength in silence. Strength in fight. I put it on. There were no flashbacks. No sting in my cheek. No ghosts in the walls. Only breath, stillness, and clarity. I brewed a cup of tea and walked to my small balcony, the city buzzing faintly below. This wasn't the ending I imagined when I first said I do. But maybe this was better. Because this ending? It was mine. No one was telling me who to be. No one was clapping for my obedience. No one was feeding off my silence. Just me.
Steady. Whole.
Before going back inside, I glanced one more time at the sky. A soft purple haze stretched across the horizon. lavender. But in me,
Steel.